Hi everyone, I'm Tracy and I'm here with Shane today, and he will be doing another presentation today about directed energy. So before we get started though, if you're here for the live chat, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate all of your comments and questions, so keep them coming. Also, if you have not done so already, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps out. And if you want to support the channel, you can also send a super chat that helps the channel go on. And I really, really appreciate it. So today, the main topics are going to be the directed energy patents. Also, a little bit more details about why blue items were left undamaged and just more in depth information about the technology behind directed energy. So, with that, I'll let Shane start his presentation.
All right. Thanks, Tracy. All right. So I'm going to go back into the patent and I'm going to show this now. So this is a patent for laser guided microwaves. And what they do is they create pulsed lasers that ionize the air they travel through, which creates a temporary plasma tube, which is opaque and reflective to microwaves. It can hold the microwaves within it like an air duct or water pipe, as you can see in this graphic here, until they reach the end where it makes contact with surfaces and transfers its energy to the surface materials. This works especially well with metals, which absorb and transduce microwave radiation into electrical induction and infrared radiation. The electrical induction travels along the length of the metals, including power lines and appliances. Anything that is not well grounded will overload and become energized to the point of sublimation and calcination. Arcs can also cause some combustive flames in close proximity to the metals. So this is how that you can transmit microwaves over a long distance to a small area. Now, on September 28th, 2021, there was a Congressional Research Service report titled Department of Defense Directed Energy Weapons Backgrounds and Issues for Congress. In this report is a moderately detailed overview of the DoD's directed energy weapons programs, including lasers and high-powered microwave weapons, as well as their characteristics, capabilities, limitations, funding, and issues such as potential for fratricide. They also cover the effectiveness of countermeasures because electromagnetic radiation can be absorbed by shielding. HPM weapons, which stands for high power microwaves, may not be effective against shielded targets. So now I want to go into some of the platforms and some of the systems that the DoD has available. I know you guys want to talk about space lasers, and there are orbital components such as the United States Space Force's Space Training and Readiness Command, also known as STARCOM, which operates the National Space Test and Training Complex Orbital Component, or NSTTCO. The NSTTCO provides range control for orbital warfare activities conducted on space-based assets, as well as those owned and operated by non-NSTTC organizations. The NSTTCO provides capability to securely test developmental and operational space systems to train, exercise space operations crews of all services in an LVC environment. Now, I know a lot of people do want to talk about satellite platforms, and they think that, most of these lasers probably came from space, and a lot of people want to think they're Chinese space lasers. But if there were any orbital platforms involved, then it was most likely those of the Space Force. Now, I know that Hawaii had seen the green lasers before. Those are most likely geographical information satellite systems that are more for mapping. Now, is speculation that it could have been done to map out ahead of time for the burn areas, but that is just speculation. And I'd want to reiterate that the green lasers from the GIS satellites are not capable of the destruction that was seen on Maui. However, there was on June 22nd a certification for these platforms about a month prior to Exercise Talisman Sabre that also certified the other branches of the armed forces. Some of these include the Skies series of exercises, which include black skies and also I think red and crimson skies as well. Now I want to go into some other platforms as well, because it's possible that satellites could have been involved, but most likely it was drone platforms. Now there are drone platforms such as the Predators, Predator B and Predator C drone platforms that can carry high-powered microwaves and lasers, as well as the Q4 Global Hawk drone platform. But Lockheed Martin also makes a Morpheus drone, which is a high-powered microwave weapon that weighs 30 pounds and can be shoulder launched from a rocket launcher. The wings fold out after launch, and it's autonomous, and it can fly around through the assistance of AI, and it can take out airborne targets with high-powered microwaves, but it can also focus on ground targets as well. And it is capable of starting fires. So now I want to shift gears a little bit and go into the colors, right? So lasers usually come in different colors and they have different wavelengths. And most of the lasers that the military uses are actually outside of the visible spectrum. The tattoo removal industry knows this very well when it comes to lasers and color interaction. There's a tattoo removal clinic called the Removery that has an article about the best lasers for color tattoo removal. Instead of reading the article, I'm going to actually play a clip from the VP of their clinic.
Hi, my name is Carmen Brody. I'm the VP of Clinical Operations at Removery. Lasers in general have several different wavelengths. The ones that we choose to use are the 532 for your warm tones. Your oranges and your reds are really what the 532 are for. And then we have 700s. We have a 730, 785, 730. And that's more attracted to your blues, greens, purples. 1064 is probably the most used wavelength in tattoo removal, no matter what machine you have. Most of them start with a 1064. That addresses your blacks, your grays. Most colors have black and gray in it, so you use it all the time. So between all of those wavelengths that we use, we can generally get most colors on most skin types. The least difficult color to remove is black. The most difficult color to remove are generally blues and greens. They're difficult.
All right, so we saw that an expert in lasers who uses them every day for color tattoo removal had difficulty removing the blues and the greens mostly. And they also do need a different color for red as well. So blue, green, and red are the colors that typically have been seen, especially in Chile, that had survived the fire. Now I'm going to show one more clip about laser tattoo removal and colors.
Now the dark ink comes off pretty easily, but the red ink is essentially untouched. So now what do? That's where this witchcraft comes in. So inside this tip is a crystal of potassium titanyl phosphate, or KTP for short. It splices two IR photons together to make one green photon via a process called second harmonic generation. Now the fact that you can just screw this onto the tip to make it green is literally insane, because it's usually a lot harder to pull off nonlinear optical processes like this. The green light does a much better job at removing the red ink, but really this isn't much of a surprise, since red and green are on opposite sides of the color wheel. I mean, tattoos come in a huge variety of different colors, so you can't use just one laser for all of them.
All right, so you saw that you can't just use one laser for all colors, and that blues and greens were the hardest to remove, and red also requires a specific wavelength of laser. Now what I want to do is show a laser test on different colors. And one thing I do want you to pay attention to is the sound that the laser makes, because the high frequency lasers often do make this high pitched sound when they strike surfaces. All right, so you notice that it didn't burn the blue, but the one thing I did also want to point out was the high pitch frequency that was made by the smaller laser. It did show up in some other clips that I'm not going to play now, but we're going to go ahead and move on. One thing that you have seen many times before is the umbrellas at Tommy Bahama's on the corner of Papalaua and Front Street. And then you may have also seen the blue pamphlet that was found by Eric West. But one thing that you may not have seen yet was the blue stove. And there's a lot of really unique things that happened with this stove. and I want to show you a clip. All right, so here's the stove, and you can see that the inside of the rack has been bent slightly, but the glass from the front of the stove looks like it has fallen inside onto the baking rack and been melted and re-cooled on the baking rack. Now notice that the inside paint is actually still intact, even though the baking racks were bent and the glass was melted, and there's obviously burnt material inside the stove. It would have taken approximately 2,500 plus degrees inside that stove to actually melt the glass like that. However, the paint that was just a few inches away, maybe not even 2 inches away, was completely intact. Most paints will burn at just a few hundred degrees. So the fact that the glass melted and the paint did not burn is quite an anomaly. All right, so now we're going to go to the microwave effects. So I've shown in the patent that this is a weapon that is both laser and microwave based, and the lasers interact on a color basis, and they interact least with blue. But now with microwaves, I want to show some of the effects. This is a photo that you may have seen before, which is from Kahoma Village, courtesy of Jesse Wald. What I wanted to point out here is not the blue car that survived downwind of the destroyed townhomes, but on the sidewalk here, you can see like a burnt, smoke damaged patch on these utility panels. So the sidewalk has like electrical utility panels underneath it that have wires that run underground. Kahoma Village was one of the new additions that had modern building codes, and they had underground power lines, and most of the homes there also had the hardy fiberboard cement siding. So that's why most of the homes did not really burn in Kahoma Village. But the reason I show this is because it looks like some of the underground electrical utilities also burned, because if they were struck by microwaves, then the microwaves would propagate through the wires and burn underground. All right, so something else that you guys have seen before is the Lahaina Pentecostal Church. Now, there was a power line or electrical line running through the ceiling, and if it was struck by microwaves, then the microwaves would have propagated along the electrical line and caused the damage that you see, but only in proximity to the electrical line. Now, one thing I do want to show you is another video of this. This is allegedly from Sao Paulo, Brazil, circa 2017 or 2018. I can't actually nail down the date, but I want you to pay attention to the colors and the sounds and the way that it interacts with the power lines.
Nossa Senhora! Meu Deus!
Now right here, you can see that the transformer is becoming overloaded and the power lines are starting to smoke. Watch those power lines in just a second. Now it's going to turn back on and strike the house and then propagate through the power lines, which instantly burn and fall down. So what you saw spread through those power lines like that was the way microwave energy propagates when it strikes metal. So once it overloaded the transformer, it was able to propagate through the entire length of the power line from the building all the way to the right, all the way to the left, and the power line burnt up and dropped within a matter of seconds. That's almost exactly what happened here in the line of Pentecostal Church. Now, metals act like antennas for microwaves, and we can see that these nails in these fence posts caused the fence to burn only where the nails were. And most likely that's because the metal nails received the microwave energy like an antenna and transduced it into electricity and infrared radiation, which both sparked and calcinated. So the infrared energy that comes off the nails is also going to increase the heat of the wood and cause it to be more likely to burn. But then the electrical energy that's coming off the nails will also help to burn it in those areas. Here's another fence post, a couple pair of fence posts here that have burn areas that are in proximity to the metal nails. Now, another thing I want to show is the white dust. So this white dust is what's left over after solids are calcinated into a powder. Now, we did see Ed Cheney's property. He had a bunch of cinder blocks that I don't have available here, but those cinder blocks were actually all of the water-based or anything that would be in the cinder blocks that would evaporate would be turned into a vapor, and that's called sublimation, is when solids turn into vapors. But anything that will not sublimate is left behind and is calcinated into a solid powder, or sometimes into the beads of rubble that were found under the paper pamphlet that was found by Eric West. So what you can see is a lot of evidence of calcination has occurred here. However, the blue paper had somehow not succumbed to the extreme heat. It seems to have been insulated. Now, I also want to show a trash can in Paradise, California. This trash can is very close in proximity to this fence, which is burning very strongly. However, the trash can still appears to be fine. I don't have a picture of this trash can afterwards, but I do have pictures of similar trash cans that were sitting very in similar proximity to things that were burned completely into those white ashes. Now, what's most likely happening here is the microwaves are striking the material, which is undergoing calcination and sublimation, and some of the heat is radiated away, but the radiative heat energy dissipates according to the inverse square law. So within a few feet of completely calcinated solid materials, you have completely undamaged plastic materials. So now the next thing I want to go into is the effects of the beams. So some of these beams will produce an upward draft within them. So they heat the air inside them, creating a column of warm air that rises and creates a rising spiral vortex inside of them. Now, firenadoes used to be unheard of prior to these types of fires, but I want to show a clip that is from, I believe, USA Today, which is a propaganda piece about firenadoes trying to normalize them.
The wildfire season, unfortunately, has gotten off to a catastrophic start in California. This year alone, across the country, some 7,000 square miles have burned across at least 14 states. To put that in perspective, that's equivalent to about 300 Manhattan Islands.
The heat of these wildfires has been so intense that these fires are creating their own weather. Clouds, rain, and even fire tornadoes, people. These twisting whirlwinds of flame and ash, dubbed firenadoes, that's right, or fire whirls, are putting firefighters and Mother Nature in a constant battle to gain control. Objects and debris are picked up in the whirl, sending them thousands of feet into the air and causing more surrounding fires, intensifying the wildfire. The fire isn't just spreading across land. The extreme heat and erratic winds shoot firenadoes into the sky. A firenado can be large enough to rip trees from the ground and even pull roofs off houses.
In this case, it's the heat from the fire as well as the air temperature that causes these spinning vortices known as firenadoes. And they can be as narrow as a foot in diameter to as big as 500 feet in diameter.
All right, so what we've seen here is that they're trying to get out ahead of this firenado phenomenon and make it seem like it's normal and like it's something that's either always existed or is now a side effect of climate change. However, I want to show another video that also explains this.
So the vortex is creating these massive, massive walls of heat and flames, creating their own firenadoes. Yeah, both. It's the vortex energy created by the laser devices, as we are proving here with the research. Look at this from a plane. It's busting through the clouds. This stuff is going straight up. There's no weather. There's no wind, they're saying. It's straight up. Where did the storms come from? We still don't know here in Santa Rosa. And look at the lightning. We have pictures of it. Here's pictures. Here's pictures of lightning strikes. They're visible and invisible, but when they hit the particulate matter of air with all the soot and the smog and whatnot, they can be seen. But for the most part, they're invisible. We do have pictures of lasers. If you care to see, care to look, they're right here. And you need to get up to speed on laser technology. So look at this house, folks. How did it burn? From above with a directed energy weapon. How about this one, folks?
All right. So a lot of that was actually from Paradise and Santa Rosa, California. But what I did want to point out is that He also talks about the upper vortexes, but he also mentions how they are both visible and invisible. Most of the time, the effects of these are not visible. However, when they do interact with particulates in the air, like smog and smoke, and these are also ionized lasers. So they do ionize, they create a, like I said, a plasma trail of ionized air that can also interact with the dust and the smog particles, making them visible. So now I want to talk more about Firenadoes, and I want to show you guys some clips. This is one that you've seen before. We just showed this from our Chile video, but it's a very good example of the type of Firenadoes that we've been seeing lately. They're very tall and very thin and like very narrow, like if they're trapped within a beam. But now I'm going to show you another one that you may have seen before from Paradise, California, and then I've got a few more that you have definitely not seen before. So this one is from Paradise, California. You can see how narrow and how straight it is, and it barely wavers. Even though the wind is blowing, the fire stays within what looks like potentially could be a beam. So now I'm going to show you another video of a Firenado up close, and this one's actually on green vegetation.
This is a video from a laser fire. Here, I'll put the video, I'll put the sound on so you can hear it. But watch the way this thing moves. Watch how it advances out of nowhere on green brush, on wet vegetation. Look at it move.
So yeah, you can see that the tornado is leading the edge of this fire, and the grass is only on fire. It's like 6 inches of grass, and it's only on fire at the fire front. Everything behind that is already blackened and it's done burning. So this couldn't be an extremely hot fire if it was like a natural fire. Plus, you can see how small the rest of the flames are, except where the alleged beam is. All right, so that was a good Firenado up close. Now I'm going to show you another one. This is a much.
That last clip?
That last clip, I'm not sure where it is from.
Okay.
All right, so now we have another one, and this is another California Firenado, and I'm not sure where this one is, but it was filmed by KTLA5.
Look at that. Wow. Wow. Amazing. That's one of the, wow.
This is actually a very large tornado, large fire tornado, and you can see how fast it's whipping. And one thing I want to point out is not the tornado itself, but the little fires at the side, at the periphery, all around it. Watch outside the outside of the tornado, the outside of the edge of the frame of the screen. You're going to see lots of small fires pop up out of nowhere. There doesn't seem to be any embers or any pre-existing fires at the edges, but you will see, like they're right there. There's some popping up now at the edges, and you're going to see a lot more of those spot fires just pop up and get pulled into the main fire.
This is the biggest one I've ever seen.
There goes 1, 2, 3, 4. What's causing those spot fires? There doesn't appear to be a fire front in front of them, and there goes some more. And you notice that the wind is blowing towards the fire, so it couldn't be embers because any embers would be going, to the fire, not from the fire. All right. And then we have one more clip that actually shows a Firenado as it moves over a lake. And as it moves over the lake, it becomes a water spout instead.
I wouldn't even go by there in a boat.
I wouldn't either. It's going to come back down that next loop to the right of where it first came down. It's going to come down again. See how it's coming down from the water? It's going to do another one of those water spouts.
Just toasted that stuff.
So crazy.
Here it comes.
Oh my gosh, look how huge that flame is. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
you can see how the flame looks almost too intense and energetic, even for the amount of fuel that it has.
Here it comes, it's pulling the water up.
And now it pulls the water in.
Oh my goodness.
And as it moves over the water, you can see it becomes mostly water, and there's almost no fire in the water spout.
The water
Wow.
spout. The water spout from the fire. That is nuts.
What was
Oh, these
that?
people gotta get moving.
Look at the shit falling out of the sky. That's what that is. I was like, look at it, honey.
What is
The branches is freaking from the thing. It's pulling them up in the air. We might have to go.
Yeah.
I saw big trees falling.
Look at that water spout. Oh my god. And those two boats just drove by.
Seriously, I saw logs hitting the water. I'm like, what is that? Because it's pulling them up in the air.
Oh my god. It is like a serious water spout. I gotta get
All right. Now, I'm no expert in water spouts, but it would be very difficult to maintain a temperature inversion over the surface of the water like that without some sort of external energy being applied. And with that said,
Shane,
that's all I have to.
Real quick before
Yeah.
you end, do you think those that what we just saw has anything to do with those water spouts we saw from the boat in Lahaina?
I do tend to think that actually. So one of the things that would, so if you had a smaller beam with less energy, it would probably produce very similar effects to what we saw from the sailboat in Lahaina.
Okay, yeah, that's what it reminded me of, and like the way the water was moving, it reminded me of the ocean off Lahaina too, with the waves kind of like breaking and stopping and breaking. Wow, that was incredible.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Now that's all I have to present for today, but I am also going to be working on an upcoming video about directed energy that's going to be about directed energy detection and defenses, which will probably be out over the next week or two. And I also have a new article that's going to be coming out around that time as well. Directed energy detection and defenses. All right, back to you, Tracy.
All right. Thank you so much, Shane, for all that information. Just so unbelievable what we've been seeing recently. So the next video that I think I'll be working on is an update to Senate Bill 3381 that is attempting to, well, it involves a lot of things, but the main concern about this bill is that property owners are going to be potentially losing rights over their properties. So it seems like there's kind of this information campaign that's little by little coming out. I know Governor Green did something just a couple of days ago, and he was kind of, I feel like he was prepping people to, I guess, get used to this idea of losing your rights over your property. But I'll be talking to someone that has a lot more expertise as far as these bills go. So again, Shane, thank you so much for that amazing presentation. And with that, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you all soon. Bye.